Hello and welcome. I am Zerbraxi. World of Warcraft has played a huge part in my life, and like any good RPG, the items within the world can very easily form a strong bond with players. While the past several years has been a real struggle for me at times in-game, I decided to think back to the items that I'm most fond of. I wanted to do a top 10, but yeah, that didn't quite happen. So I went for a top 15.
Wait, what? 20? Are you serious? I couldn't get the number any lower than that. Alright, it better be dang good choices though.
Now please keep in mind that this isn't in any real particular order, until maybe the final 5 or so. There's going to be quest items, weapons, armor, basically anything that had an impact on me as a player, and that I still hold close to my heart to this very day. Hopefully there are some items on here that you're attached to as well, and regardless, feel free to let me know what you like and other items that mean a lot to you in the comments below. So without further ado, my top 20-ish favorite items in the World of Warcraft. The carrot on a stick is a trinket that actually it's pretty garbage. It increases mount speed by a whopping 3%, which it's pretty bad. It's on this list mostly because if you leveled a character before Cataclysm, then you know just how long your trinket slot stayed naked during the entire leveling process. The carrot on a stick filled that void, and I will always fondly remember it as my first trinket. That, and to be fair, when I first got it, I thought 3% mount speed was like super good. The Tier 6 Warlock helmet, the Malefic Hood, is quite possibly my favorite single tier piece in the entire game still to this day. When I ended up agreeing to reroll an Alliance Warlock for the Burning Crusade, and I saw that I was going to be getting this item eventually, it made every single raid night completely worth it. And to eventually get those sweet wings, baby, they were awesome then, and they're still awesome now. When I think back to the TBC Weapons, there are several that instantly jump out at me. As you'll find out with this list, there are quite a bit of caster pieces since I mained a Warlock for an expansion, and then I mained Mage since Vanilla besides TBC. So my favorite weapon from the entire expansion, though, has to go to the Battle Mage's Baton. Even over items like Zardoom and the Grand Magister's Staff of Torrents stands a lowly blue that is a reward from the Ring of Blood questline. Perhaps it's because I love that quest so much that the staff means what it does to me. By the way, seriously Blizzard, Ring of Blood, Amphitheater of Anguish, and Crucible of Carnage are some amazing quests, and you've not made a proper follow-up for MOP, WAD, or Legion. Go on, Blizzard. Let's go ahead and help make group quests great again. The Banshee Queen Sylvanas is easily one of my favorite Warcraft characters. Her story is phenomenal, and with it comes the song Lament of the Highborn. While Sylvanas' music box isn't the first way to hear this song in-game, it's the most readily available, and I love its existence. In fact, Lament of the Highborn is also probably my favorite WoW machinima, official or otherwise. Every time I hear the song, there's a torrent of nostalgia and emotion that often places me into a humble silence. The Tome of Polymorph has made sure that I never once have to make anyone a sheep ever again. In fact, when I rerolled Alliance in TBC and was finally able to be a mage again for Wrath, the first thing I did was go into ZG on my Alliance mage every 3 days to make sure that I have a chance to polymorph turtle once again. The Coin of Many Faces introduced in the Warlords of Draenor is my absolute favorite toy in game, and it's something that I still use every single day I log on. It's fun to goof around with, and considering the impulse to constantly check its cooldown, I figured it needed to be put on this list. The Emberstone staff from Captain Greenskin from the Deadmines is a very personal choice here, since it's the first blue that I ever remember getting in the game. Also, keep in mind that in Vanilla, getting to Westfall from Durotar was no easy task. However, after a long trek, and during my first ever dungeon clear, I received this item. It may look stupid, but trust me, I held on to that staff for quite a long time. The Corrupted Ashbringer may only be epic in quality, but it's easily legendary amongst the community. I sadly had to stop playing the game during Vanilla shortly after the release of Naxxramas, but I never stopped hearing about this weapon and the Scarlet event associated with it at the time. The Ashbringer was a sought-after item ever since the earliest days of WoW, and this only fed into the legend even more. Also, having this item whisper to you while wielding it is something that still sends chills down my spine. I personally can't do the story of the Corrupted Ashbringer justice. Just understand that the effect the Ashbringer and its corrupted counterpart had on the player base is something I'll never forget. It's kind of funny looking back actually, considering Jeff Kaplan once said that players owning such an important lore item was a mistake, yet let's look at the artifact system of today. My, what a different world we live in. Class quests were long since removed from WoW for many years. Since Legion's launch, the class campaigns have been enjoyable as quests on their own, but there's still a lot more work to do for them to have even an ounce of weight that they once held. I'm not trying to allude to the vanilla class quests or the TBC flight form, but to something actually that came a bit later. While Mists of Pandaria is still easily my least favorite expansion since launch, it did drop a little item that made me resub just to experience getting one. That would be the Sealed Tome of the Lost Legion. This is how to do a class quest. This quest made people create new warlocks. This quest made people level their lock alts. This quest is arguably the best quest to ever exist within the game. It's unique, rich in story, forces warlocks to play differently than they ever had to, and ends on an incredibly challenging note at the time. But when you overcame that obstacle, you were rewarded with the much requested ability to fit your spells into a more demonic theme. This tome means more to me than probably the entire expansion of Mists of Pandaria. However, it's not the only class quest item on this list, but we'll get back to that soon enough. For any of you who don't know me well, I'm a huge Zelda fan, and in fact, Ocarina of Time is still my all-time favorite game. So when I heard that there was a Legend of Zelda reference in WoW, I had to go find it. The quest chain, It's a Secret to Everybody, existed in Ungoro Crater before the Cataclysm revamp. Following this would have you working to retrieve Lincoln's lost memories. This quest sent you all over Azeroth. It was probably not worth it XP-wise, but it was still cool if you ask me. It was a time where the adventure mattered more than the destination, something I sorely miss. The rewards from this quest were Lincoln's Boomerang and Lincoln's Sword of Mastery. I still remember watching G4 TV's cheat and seeing this in game. I instantly logged in to find that quest, and it will always hold a very, very special place in my heart. The Warglaives of Azeroth are probably the most sought-after legendaries in game, alongside Thunder Fury. I don't have a lot to say here because everyone knows just how awesome they are. If you played Warcraft 3, you knew that these were going to be cool, and they are. So yeah, the Warglaives own. That's it. It seems like everybody who's played WoW had that one moment where they saw someone with an item and that drove them to want to acquire it. For me, it's the Staff of Dominance from Golemag the Incinerator in Molten Core. Seeing a mage with this item in Orgrimmar made me want to raid. It made me want to delve into the endgame, and because of it, I'm still raiding to this day. Jeff Kaplan once said that players should always have something to aspire to in World of Warcraft. For me, this item is what kick-started it all, and for that, I'll never forget it. When the Burning Crusade launched, so many people were driven by a desire to eventually be standing toe-to-toe with Illidan Stormrage. I was no different. Many were aiming to steal the Warglaives from him, but I had my sights on another item that I knew he'd be in possession of. That would be the Skull of Gul'dan. This was the original Trinket of Trinkets. The hit rating, the spell power, the on-use haste effect, the sexy eye holes, all of it was glorious. And to top it all off, when you used it, you were engulfed in glorious fellfire. This was the original Deathbringer's Will, and it's an item that's never lost its love from the player base, or myself. The Noggin Fogger Elixir is an item that I have used since I've been able to buy it, and I have never stopped to this day. The ability to transform into a skeleton or become super tiny never gets old to me. It's dumb, it's silly, and yet it's an item that I possibly have an addiction to. The Talisman of Binding Shard is without a doubt the most legendary item in World of Warcraft. In fact, still to this day, only one person in the entire game holds it, and that is Noctin, now known as Savorx. To sum up the item, the Talisman of Binding Shard was never meant to drop. yet was left on Baron Geddon's loot table accidentally. Instead of removing the item from the group when it did drop off the boss, Blizzard let the guild keep it, and instead just removed it from the loot table for good afterwards. If you played the game during the early days of vanilla, the Talisman was talked about everywhere, and the name Noggin was echoed throughout many servers. It was almost unreal at the time. This item spawned so many legends, and Noggin has the honor of being the lone holder to the most legendary item in World of Warcraft. Alright, so let me just say that the next 5 items were incredibly tough to really put down in an order. Some of these items may not appear that important to the game, but understand that the rest of this list stands for something more than just the item itself. Each of these has something great attached to them. Each of them has a story, a legacy, an aspect of the game and my time in it. They represent concepts of World of Warcraft that I value most. So if you want an actual ordered list, then here it is. My actual top 5 favorite items. The final trinket on this list is the Mind Quickening Gem from Veilstraz the Corrupt in Blackwing Lair. Now you can honestly substitute this trinket with basically any class-specific raid drop. You see, the Mind Quickening Gem helped establish the fantasy of the mage for me, not necessarily through lore means, but it helped shape my perception of the mage's gameplay. This gem was valuable to me not just because of its ridiculous 33% increased casting speed at the time. Yeah, it was a more powerful time warp before mages ever even got time warp. Instead, its value came purely from its uniqueness. Compare it to the Black Book for Warlocks, or any other class trinket from Blackwing Lair. There was a sense of class fantasy through the item. This wouldn't happen again until 10 years later with Archimonde in the Hellfire Citadel dropping class trinkets once again. Yet these new trinkets were more mechanical and practical in nature, and less wondrous. The class trinkets from Archimonde were too safe, and because of that, they felt boring. The Blackwing Lair class trinkets, though, were something that blew my mind, and I'll never forget them. Number 4 is a bit of cheating, as it encompasses several items. Number 4 is Rakdalar, Longbow of the Ancient Keepers, and Benediction and Anathema. These are the items I was referring to back during the sealed Tome of the Lost Legion part. Just like the Mind Quickening Gem, it's not necessarily the items in particular, but rewards from these types of class quests in general. What made Rakdalar and Benediction so memorable wasn't just that they were powerful rewards from a long class quest. Everybody tended to get at least something decently worthwhile in vanilla from their class quests. What made them so awesome, though, was that you started the quests from deep within a raid. You're ready to take on Ragnaros before you can even attempt to start acquiring these epic items. However, what lied before you was deep in class fantasy. It was flooded with lore, and it was challenging. Incredibly challenging. But emerging from these trials gave you some of the best items for quite some time. They weren't just powerful, they were a badge of pride for both your skill and your class. That is the feeling people are describing when they say they miss class quests. That is what I miss most about them, and I hope that we can one day get to see another item quite like these in the future. Flying in WoW is now such a controversial subject, a subject ironically made from what many consider the best time in World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade. Now try to remove the current issues of flying for just a moment and remember that at the time, flying in Outland was indescribable. From that came my favorite set of mounts, the Netherwing Drakes. In particular, the Azure Netherwing Drake was the first that I chose to keep. The ability to even start attempting to obtain one of these drakes was already locked behind the rather large obstacle of purchasing epic flying, which was rather pricey at the time. From there, you were able to experience the Netherwing Ledge, and the journey down the reputation grind began. The reward from this grind was access to the Netherwing Drakes. They were a sight to behold in TBC, and I've never stopped using mine since. Atiesh, Great Staff of the Guardian, is more of a story than an item. It's not quite as rare as the Talisman of Binding Shard, but I think that's what makes it matter more to me. It was a legendary item that many did acquire. I know it exists, and I knew of people who helped their raid to obtain one during Naxxramas. I've seen the videos of people procuring Atiesh for themselves, yet I've never once seen it in-game to this very day. I know it's there, I know it's real, and I know it was created to be retrieved. Yet it's so rare that I may never have the privilege of seeing one with my own eyes, ever. To some, that may sound miserable or infuriating. Jeff Kaplan said at BlizzCon 2005 that having a game with content not yet finished or seen is healthy, because it makes the world feel larger. For me, Atiesh encompasses that. To me, that's what makes World of Warcraft feel that much more alive, and truly legendary. Number 1 is a pair of simple quest turn-in items. They are white quality that you just loot from a corpse, but they mean more to me than I can properly put into words. But for the sake of the video, I guess I'll try. These items are the vials from Lady Vashj and Kael'thas Sunstrider. These two lore characters are incredible. They are some of the best faces within Warcraft in general. On top of that, they were also phenomenal boss fights in the Burning Crusade. Kael'thas, in fact, remains my favorite boss in the game to date. Finally conquering him during content was kind of overwhelming. Brutal doesn't even begin to describe it, but it's not the difficulty alone that makes it so important to me. During fights like Vashj and Kael, guilds go through phases. People get frustrated due to the lack of progress, and they get fed up and leave. Or they'll just stay, but are noticeably unhappy. Yet at the same token, through these trials, the bond between you and your guild becomes incredibly strong. Friends now become family. I can still remember the name of every single person in the raid when I first killed Kael'thas in 2007. World of Warcraft isn't always easy, but difficulty isn't bad. In fact, many perceive trials and challenges as opportunities to grow and to bond. In WoW, you need this. You need others, and they need you. This is why so much of current World of Warcraft saddens me. So many will never be able to quite feel that same sense of wonder that many veteran players did, just as I will never be able to experience that thrill of defeating Kel'Thuzad in Max 40. I envy that because I can't even imagine what that must have been like. When you turn these items in, you are gifted with the title, Hand of Adal. This title is what I've worn since that day I've earned it. Since then, I still have people occasionally whispering me, asking me how to get it. There's a true sense of pride when I get to encourage people to go raid and participate in an aspect of gaming that is truly untouchable. It's something that's not only enjoyable to play, but working together with so many people, through so many wipes, with so much passion, that is possibly the greatest feeling that you can get in gaming.
The drone is.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Go.
Yes!
Son of a fucking.
You're talking about just keep DPSing.
Yes.
Alright, there's what raiding's all about, fellas.